Good morning, this is Petrus Vivius from Viewpoints TV. I want to present to you today Donald Trump, the black man's president. Well, the minority president. Well, seems to me everyone's president. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, like or dislike the video, leave a comment, and enjoy your day.
The following video has been rated RP. It contains graphic scenes of liberal hypocrisy and disingenuousness. Viewer discretion is advised.
Nancy Patricia Pelosi. Time is short. Shorter for you. And while we still have time, I have some questions for you. How does a person amass a net worth of tens of millions of dollars on an annual salary of $223,500 per year as a lifetime public servant? Since you love socialism so much, how much of your personal salary can we expect you to redistribute to those who are less fortunate than you? When President Trump authorized the strike to kill Qasem Soleimani, you said you didn't think it made the country safer. Can you explain to me how keeping a radical Islamic terrorist alive would keep the country safer? Here's a question I already know the answer to. Who are the Democrats really working for? The American people or foreigners? In 2013, why did you refuse to call on your old friend and former Democratic mayor of San Diego, Bob Filner, to resign after multiple women credibly accused him of sexual assault and harassment? Furthermore, when questioned about this, why was your response, "What happens in San Diego is up to the people of San Diego. I'm not here to make any judgments"? When Christine Blasey Ford came forward with her unsubstantiated claims of sexual assault against Brett Kavanaugh during his Supreme Court nomination, why did you reverse your aforementioned position and say survivors should be supported when they come forward without the fear of threats or further trauma? Do you pattern your look after Skeletor from He-Man, or does he pattern his look after you? Who is your most trusted advisor, Evan Williams or Jack Daniels? Which brand do you recommend, Polydent or Fixodent? Who does that Botox? American women across the country demand to know. I notice you sometimes bring up your Catholic faith whenever it's convenient to your agenda. So I'm curious, what part of the Catholic faith supports killing unborn children? And speaking of Catholicism, when can we expect you to condemn the Pope for living behind walls, since you clearly don't support them yourself? What are you accusing President Trump of with no proof that none of your Democrat cohorts are actually guilty of themselves? When Obamacare was being debated, you said we have to pass it to see what's in it. So I guess with Trump's impeachment, we have to impeach him to see what he's guilty for. Am I right? Last year, you said, "I'm not for impeachment without bipartisan support." But then you decided to proceed with impeachment anyway, even though the House votes confirmed it was a blatantly partisan effort. Did you forget you said that, or has your TDS advanced to stage 4? When talking about impeachment, you've repeatedly said, "This is a sad and somber affair in which you take no pleasure." Does this look like the face of someone going through a sad and somber affair? Asking for a friend. Did you hold off on sending the articles of impeachment to the Senate because you were waiting for Amazon to deliver the set of custom souvenir pens you used to sign them? Why not just grab Adam Schiff's pencil neck and sign them immediately? In your closing speech on the House floor before sending articles of impeachment to the Senate, why did you deliberately misquote the words President Trump used in his phone call with Ukraine's president? What language were you speaking in your speech immediately after the House voted to impeach President Trump?
That
doesn't sound like English to me. How much would you say the methane gas rising from the human feces on the streets of San Francisco affects the average person's mental capabilities? Don't answer. You're all the proof we need. While you were signing the articles of impeachment, President Trump was signing a historic trade deal with China. So you tell me, who's trying to make America great and who is trying to tear it down? Thank you for working so tirelessly to ensure the re-election of President Trump. Where should we send your participation trophy? I think all Americans are wondering, what is it about Mike Pence that makes you want to make him president so badly you're willing to impeach President Trump to do it? You said the GOP was paralyzed by hate during the Bill Clinton impeachment in the 90s. So I'm guessing being paralyzed by hate no longer applies in 2020? Does innocent until proven guilty mean anything to you? Or does it only apply to the people you like? The American people will wait your response.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. Revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.
I'm 51 years old. I've seen many presidents, and presidents can only be there for 8 to 4 years.
That's right.
It always changes, but you know what hadn't changed? The things that are going on in this country has not changed.
Right.
And you know something else that hadn't changed?
Congress.
People have been in Congress for 30 to 20 years.
Right.
So it's not your president's fault. He can only do so much. And we have, for our first time in American history, to have a president to push as hard as he can, to take all the scrutiny that he can. We've never had a president this bold since Ronald Reagan. We finally got a president that's not afraid. But this president is not going to be here forever, so we have to continue to not be afraid. Man, a lot of you guys claim to be Italian Americans, French Americans, Mexican Americans, but guess what? You go to your countries, you are no more Mexican than I am Africans. You are an American first. We share an American culture.
We all bleed red.
We share an American flag.
Now I want to ask a question. Some people might call this rhetorical, but I'm not going to ask it as rhetorical. There's a number of my colleagues still remaining here. I am more than willing to yield to any of my colleagues that want to answer this question. If you walk out this hallway and you take a right and another right and another right, you're going to come to several beautiful walls that have the names of our fallen service members from the War on Terror. And I would ask, can any of you provide me one name on that wall that doesn't justify killing Soleimani? I got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll be more than happy to sit here and wait. Somebody provide me with a name on that wall that does not justify his killing.
Well, the gentleman may continue.
I'm continuing, Mr. Chairman. I got 2 minutes remaining. I will sit here and wait for somebody to provide me with a name on that wall that does not justify the killing of Soleimani.
Thank you, Mr. Mass. I think you made your point. Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Chairman, I have not yielded back my time, and I still have a minute and 45 seconds
You're disrupting the
I will
procedures
not
right
yield
now.
back my time, Mr. Chairman.
You're disrupting
I
the
have a
procedures,
minute and
Mr.
45
Mass.
seconds remaining, of which I would like to wait for somebody to provide me with a name of somebody on our memorial wall who does
You're
not
out of order, Mr.
justify
Mass.
the killing of Soleimani.
You are out of order.
I will not yield
You
back
are out
my
of
time.
order, Mr. Mass.
I will not
Chair,
yield back
made
my
your
time.
point.
I am
Mr.
not
Chair,
out of order.
Mr.
You
Chair,
are out of
I'll
order,
yield a minute.
Mr. Chairman, for reclaiming this time.
Mr. Chair, I'll yield a minute of my time to Mr. Mast.
Well, he's got time.
Thank you. Thank you, my colleague. I appreciate it.
Mr. Phillips doesn't have any time. Just wait for Mr. Mast's time to expire.
Okay, when is his time?
It's now Mr. Phillips' time.
Did they add someone add things to it?
No, because he didn't have time.
1:30, whatever.
Yeah, it's his time.
Only his time?
Yeah, it's a mess.
Okay. Why did Phillips give him an extra minute? Was what? Is that the thing here?
Yeah, so Phillips has a right to say he didn't have any time.
Yeah.
It's Mast's.
Okay.
He has a right to do it now.
Okay.
And then you can call Mr. Phillips once it's done.
Just tell me when.
Mr. Chair, if I might begin.
Yeah,
Thank you for yielding me your time, although I did not yield my time back. I thank you. I will note that there was no response of one name offered that did not justify the killing of Soleimani.
Yeah, please.
President, what do you say to Democrats that say you were witness tampering this morning when you made that tweet?
You don't want to talk about transparency? You know, I'll talk about transparency. I like transparency here, and I'm the most transparent president in history. And I'll tell you about what tampering is. Tampering is when a guy like Shifty Schiff doesn't let us have lawyers. Tampering is when Schiff doesn't let us have witnesses, doesn't let us speak. I've been watching today. For the first time, I started watching, and it's really sad when you see people not allowed to ask questions. It's totally, nobody's ever had such horrible due process. There was no due process. And I think it's considered a joke all over Washington and all over the world. The Republicans are given no due process whatsoever. We're not allowed to do anything. It's a disgrace what's happening. But you know what? The American public understands it, and that's why the poll numbers are so good, and that's why other things are so good. What they're doing in Washington with that hearing, and by the way, it's a political process. It's not a legal process. So if I have somebody saying I'm allowed to speak up, if somebody says about me, we're not allowed to have any kind of representation, we're not allowed to have almost anything, and nobody's seen anything like it. In the history of our country, there has never been a disgrace like what's going on right now. So you know what? I have the right to speak. I have freedom of speech, just as other people do. But they've taken away the Republicans' rights. And I watched today as certain very talented people wanted to ask questions, and they weren't even allowed to ask questions. Republicans, they weren't allowed to ask questions. It's a very sad thing. Go ahead.
Sir, with your freedom. Sir, with your freedom, were you trying to intimidate Ambassador Yovanovitch?
I just want to have I want freedom of speech. That's a political process. The Republicans have been treated very badly, and I watched a little bit of it today. I wasn't able to yesterday because we had the president of Turkey here, and I wasn't able to watch much. I watched some of it this morning. I thought it was a disgrace. When we have great Republican representatives, people elected by the people, and they're not allowed to even ask a question. They're not allowed to make a statement. We're not allowed to have witnesses. We're not allowed to have legal counsel, White House counsel. It's a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to our nation.
Do you believe your tweets and your words can be intimidating?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sir, do you believe your tweets and words can be intimidating?
Quiet.
Sir, do you believe
Please.
your tweets and words can be intimidating?
I don't think so at all. Go ahead.
Mr. President, do you think you're going to get impeached?
Well, I shouldn't be. In fact, I thought last night it ended because last night I was in Louisiana where we're going to hopefully elect a great governor, Republican governor. And I was getting off the plane and they handed me a statement that was just made by the foreign minister and president of the Ukraine. And Ukraine, they came out loud and clear that there was no linkage whatsoever, not even a little bit. And you saw it. You all saw it. I said, oh, well, that ends the impeachment. And you people don't even report it. Look, the press is unbelievably dishonest. That was a major statement put out last night by the foreign minister of Ukraine and also by the president of Ukraine. And you don't even report it. It's a disgrace because it said there was absolutely no linkage. We had a perfect conversation. And I also, because of transparency, whether it's medical transparency or just transparency generally, I also put out today a statement. And in the statement, we released, and then Congressman Nunes read a call that I had with the president of Ukraine, and it was a great call. It was a very nice call. Everybody said it was perfect. I always say it was equally as good as the other call. And I put it out today, and nobody even wants to report it because it was so good they don't want to report it. Look, if we had an honest press in this country, we would be so well served. And you know what? When I look at your approval numbers, they're the worst they've ever been in the history of our country. The media, the approval numbers, they are horrible. And you ought to get yourself back, and you ought to put yourself back in a position where people respect the media again. And I know some great journalists, I know some great people in the media, but there aren't enough of them. There's a lot of dishonesty. And many of you I just consider members of the Democrats, and it's a shame. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All of our outside guests can just hang tight. Hail to them all.
And I had this camera on my head, but I had to get it off my head.
Let's bring in Mike Pence, our vice president. You were there. You were standing right next to her behind the president.
Good morning.
Good morning. What was your reaction? Did you realize when she was ripping it up what she was doing?
I didn't see her do it. I found out just a few moments later, and I think it was a new low. I wasn't sure if she was ripping up the speech or ripping up the Constitution. I mean, it's clear the contrast here was a president who spent an hour and a half making the speech about America.
Right.
And Nancy Pelosi in the final moments tried to make it about her. And I think the American people see through it. I think they see through the pettiness. They see through the politics of all of it. And I think what they got last night was a speech that lifted up the country, that celebrated the incredible progress that we've made in our economy, rebuilding our military, strengthening our courts. But the stories that the president told were American stories. Right. And I just know it was a great blessing to people all across America, and it's one of the reasons why you see the momentum growing behind this president. And I just have a strong feeling that she's going to be the last Speaker of the House to sit in that chair for a long time.
You know, when you look at it, given the fact that we've never seen anything like that before, I think some people thought, well, that's kind of a sore loser move. That's like if at the end of the Super Bowl, the 49ers took the Lombardi Trophy away from the Chiefs and spiked it or something like that. You think that she planned to do that all along?
It felt like it. It was such an immediate moment. And I just don't, you know, I've been to a lot of State of the Union addresses as a member of Congress, and now this was my fourth as a Vice President of the United States. And there's always a basic decorum and a basic respect. But to have her stand up and tear up that speech really dishonored the moment, and I really thought it was beneath the dignity of a joint session of Congress, and I think it'll be remembered as such.
So a lot of people said, and in fact the White House tweeted out, when she ripped up that speech, she ripped up the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, the survival of a child born at 21 weeks, the mourning of the family of Rocky Jones, Kayla Mueller, and the service members' reunion with his family. That's what that speech represented. Jody Jones joined us in studio. His brother was a victim of an illegal immigrant, killed him. Listen to what his take was.
It felt like she ripped our hearts out. Everybody there, all the guests, we couldn't believe it. Look, I don't care how you feel about somebody. That was probably the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen in my life. Because when she did that, it just tore us up. We couldn't believe it.
Well, I met Jody and the rest of Rocky's family before. Karen and I had a few moments with them. The president had time with them. This is a grieving family who lost a loved one at the hands of an illegal immigrant in California. And she ripped up Rocky's story. She ripped up Janaea's story. She ripped up the story about the Williams family and about General McGee. And I have to tell you, I really don't. I don't actually get her take on this. She's saying that it was filled with lies. What lies were there? I mean, I watched the president build this speech. Everything about the economy, everything about the military, everything about President Trump's decisive action, taking about al-Baghdadi and Qasem Soleimani, every story about Americans, the hopeful, aspirational tone at the end. I expect when the dust settles on this speech, it's going to be remembered as one of the best State of the Union addresses in history.
Been to? You've been to a lot. Have you ever seen? I don't ever remember watching this and seeing people get rewards. You had the Williams family. He comes out of the audience and he surprises his family.
What a moment.
He's been gone for 7 months. It was so sweet. The little girl, Janaea, you mentioned her. She lives in a neighborhood where the schools are not good. Her mom is a single mom and wants to give her daughter a better life. And the president looks at her and says, I'm going to give you a scholarship, school choice. You can choose what school you want to go to. And the mom, their reaction to the daughter, so excited because she's going to have a better life now, a better education.
Let's take a look at that soundbite.
Janaea's mom, Stephanie, is a single parent. She would do anything to give her daughter a better future. But last year, that future was put further out of reach when Pennsylvania's governor vetoed legislation to expand school choice to 50,000 children. But Janaea, I have some good news for you, because I am pleased to inform you that your long wait is over. I can proudly announce tonight that an opportunity scholarship has become available. It's going to you, and you will soon be heading to the school of your choice.
Look at that. It was so cool because, you know, presidents always talk about what they've done in the past year and what they hope to do the next year. But these were TV moments that we actually saw. They weren't like, this person did that. We saw the Tuskegee Airmen. We saw her story. We saw Juan Guaido. And we saw your longtime friend, Rush Limbaugh, who earlier this week it was revealed he's got stage 4 cancer. He's in the fight of his life. The president did this last night with Rush, and Rush did not see this coming.
Rush, in recognition of all that you have done for our nation, the millions of people a day that you speak to and that you inspire, and all of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I will now ask the First Lady of the United States to present you with the honor, please.
Because, Mr. Vice President, that always happens at the White House. It never happens in Congress. Rush did not see that happening. You've known Rush for a very long time. You were on the radio together when you were back in Indiana.
I was back in the 1990s when he became a national phenomenon. 30 years ago, I was in the radio business, and I mean, it's what Sean Hannity said the other night. I mean, Rush Limbaugh really. He plowed the way for conservative men and women on the airwaves of America, not just radio, but I think television. And his contributions to this country, his contributions to the conservative movement are innumerable. And I know for a fact he didn't expect the medal last night. I reached him shortly after he and Catherine left the Capitol, and he was very moved and told me that he was going to spend the rest of his life trying to earn it. And I said, Rush, wow, you've already earned it. Right. You've already earned it. Everything you've done to uphold values and ideals that have made this country great.
What did your wife say that they were saying after it happened? Because I saw that she was sitting next to Rush's wife.
It was. Well, you have to remember this is a challenging moment for them with his diagnosis. He's a strong guy. I know that millions of Americans, including our families, are going to be praying for him and a swift recovery, but Karen said they were very moved, and she just assured them of our prayers. And Rush told me last night that his wife said that God is working in all of this. And I believe that moment, which the president, we all found out about Rush, and then the president just had this thought to say, I want to have you come to the State of the Union
He's
address.
always a TV producer.
But then he didn't. But then he said, he told him, he said, I know you've got some medical procedures this week, but I'd like to have you there. But he didn't tell him he was going to give him the highest civilian honor.
Now, you notice that the Speaker of the House didn't even look up. I mean, if you see the video, she wouldn't even look up.
To someone, here's someone with stage 4 cancer. Yeah. It strikes me as one of those moments that was very revealing, whether it was the ripping up of the pages or the her talking throughout the speech or looking down. I think there was an attitude of disrespect that I don't think really reflected how the American people were responding to this speech.
Was she speaking to you throughout the speech?
She was. She
talking about what?
So occasionally. Well, I was listening to the president, so I can't tell you exactly what she was saying, but she seemed to be muttering along about things that they had been doing that I don't know if she thought they weren't getting sufficient credit for. But you know, you mentioned Janaea. She and her mom are going to fly with me to Pennsylvania today. We're going to do another school choice event. I was in Wisconsin, where school choice began 30 years ago. And you know, Steve, I'll tell you, these were powerful moments on television, to be sure, but it's because they were real.
Absolutely.
It's because in Pennsylvania, we have a governor who just vetoed a bill that would have expanded educational choice opportunities to let families just like Janaea's be able to choose the best public, private homeschool for their family. And he vetoed the bill and denied it. And that's why the president last night said, not only do we want to open doors for Janaea, but we want to open freedom scholarships for people all across this country.
So the other thing is today at 4 o'clock, the president there's going to be a vote on whether the president will be impeached. What do you expect?
Well, we expect a bipartisan vote in the United States Senate. You know, the only bipartisan vote in the House of Representatives was against the articles of impeachment. And we expect a bipartisan vote in the United States Senate today. I mean, and I must tell you, I led the Senate over to the House of Representatives last night, and I talked to a number of the members about just how grateful we are for the job that they've done in moving towards a swift acquittal.
Right.
I mean, it's such a disservice to the country, and to look out and to see the Democrats with their arms folded last night, I think that contrasted with a president who made the speech, made the moment about him. That was all the talk yesterday.
Sure.
Was the president going to talk about impeachment? No, he was going to talk about America, the progress we've made for the American people, and all that we can still do.
I think the classy thing for the Democrats to do, they didn't do this, but the classy thing would have been, you know, we've had our differences in the past, which is a polite way to say we tried to throw you out of office, but starting tomorrow with the acquittal, we turn the page. And let's try to get something done in the bonus round before, you know, the people of the United States decide whether or not we get to come back again.
Well, yeah, that would have been classy, but I didn't see a lot of class on the Democrat side. A few exceptions. I mean, there were a handful of Democrats that stood at key moments, and I tried to acknowledge that. I tried to nod to them and express appreciation to them because they grabbed those moments. But to see the one issue after another. I mean, to the president to celebrate the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans in history, the lowest unemployment rate for Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans, to have people sitting on their hands when you hear about this incredible American comeback. I think, again, I think the American people watching had to conclude this was a president focused on them. And there's a Democrat majority in the House today that's focused on politics and on their agenda.
You and I share similar faith, and a lot of the country went to the polls and voted for President Trump because of where he stood on certain issues and where you stand on certain issues. And many people I always hear are so proud of your boldness for Christ. How do you, and there are Christians on both sides of the aisle, obviously, people of faith on both sides of the aisle. What is happening to our country? Where do we go from here? People are looking to you as a leader to help us and praying to God that this has just become so divisive, so hateful. And to see, you know, we think about our Constitution, our forefathers, their faith meant a lot to them. They were Democrats, they were Republicans, and Nancy up there ripping that. To me, it's hurtful.
And you're right. It was Ainsley. But I have to tell you, as I travel all over the country, and I travel a lot, I'm still convinced that there's more that unites us in this country than will ever divide us. And chief among those things is faith. I mean, I meet people every day. I'll be in Pennsylvania today. And I always try and thank people for their prayers and encourage them to pray for this country. And the range of people who will stop me in diners, the range of people who will stop me on a street corner or on a rope line in a rally and just say, tell the president we're praying for him, we're praying for you, we're praying for the country. It's still it's the wellspring of support that it's always been in America.
So let me ask something. What could get done in the next few months? Infrastructure, prescription drugs. I mean, but how could we see that and expect that? Because you talked about health care in the speech, but there's nothing on the docket for health care that we could see straight ahead, or is there?
Remember, he said, put it on my desk and I'll sign it.
Yeah, well, first off, we can lower the cost of prescription drugs right out of the
program.
Well, look, we've got legislation that's bipartisan legislation. Chuck Grassley, Ron Wyden have worked on in the United States Senate. I've been in meetings in the West Wing where we've talked about this, and the president said, pass the bipartisan bill, put it on my desk, we'll lower prescription drugs for the American people. I mean, we can work on health care. We can We can work on infrastructure. My gosh, when I was in the Congress of the United States, the one thing you could always get people to agree on was roads and bridges.
It's just who pays for it and how.
And well, right, but Brian, I remind people all the time.
They can always find money.
I tell people all the time, I said, remember, you elected a builder to be president of the United States of America. There has never been a president in the Oval Office that wanted to rebuild America more than President Donald Trump. And we can do it. There's legislation on the books, John Barrasso's bill. There's other legislation in the House. We can move on this. The question is, did the Democrats actually want to get anything done for the American people? Or did last night just simply signal that they want to go fight it out in the election? We're prepared to do either one. The president made it very clear. Sure. We're prepared to work with you to move the country forward, a stronger, more prosperous America. But we're also prepared to go out there and earn 4 more years.
And they're planning to investigate and investigate and investigate. I hear there's more coming.
Last night, the president referred to it as the great American comeback. Mr. Vice President, we know you've got to go to Pennsylvania. You got a busy day. Thanks for dropping by Bret Baier's big plastic desk today.